So I want to ask you about your diet and your other health regimen.
Oh, he wants to know my secret. Well, listeners
Absolutely.
can send $500 to the address below, and I'll be happy to let them know my secret. Uh, well,
You take checks, I hope.
there isn't really a secret. I've always been interested, as I mentioned earlier, been interested in life extension since my teens, and I've always tried to actually live by that, not just to think about it. Unfortunately, there are many people who talk about life extension and why it's important, but actually very quickly don't do anything much about it. They don't exercise, they eat poorly. Um, Maybe don't get enough sleep or they're stressed out. It is very hard to do, but I've been on and off. I'm far from perfect. But Natasha and I are both pretty committed to taking care of our health through diet and exercise. And as you mentioned, this is a fairly recent thing for me, but very interested in the idea of the paleo diet and lifestyle, which is actually a major change in views for me because for about 30 years I had bought completely into the idea that you should eat lots of complex carbohydrates and fiber, whole grains, and cut out pretty much all the saturated fat. Now I've really changed my view about that, having read the paleo literature. I take the view basically that our bodies still are pretty much in the same shape they were a few 100,000 years ago. Our Paleolithic ancestors grew up eating certain kinds of food. They didn't eat grains, they didn't eat sugars, they ate a lot of meat, some places even exclusively. And actually not many fruits, and the fruits they did eat were a lot less sweet than the ones we eat today. So the total sugar load was a lot lower. Now, we've probably changed a little bit, and some populations more than others. I personally think I'm probably okay with dairy. Strict paleo people, especially those who go for what some of us call paleo reenactment, where they try to really be exactly like paleo people, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You have to actually compare that to the scientific evidence. All the paleo foods aren't necessarily good, and all the Neolithic foods aren't necessarily bad. Plus, it would also mean giving up things like refrigerators and grocery stores, which I don't believe in.